We're bringing you an important public service report that affects millions of Americans and legal permanent residents across the country. This is information every U.S. citizen and green card holder should understand. Not because there's an immediate crisis, but because knowledge protects you and your family. U.S. citizenship is one of the most secure legal statuses in the world. For the vast majority of naturalized citizens and those born in the United States, citizenship is permanent and protected by constitutional law. However, like any legal status, it comes with certain responsibilities and conditions that, when violated in specific ways, can lead to serious consequences. Green card holders or lawful permanent residents have a different status that requires ongoing compliance with immigration law. While millions of green card holders live their entire lives in the United States without ever facing problems, understanding the conditions of permanent residency helps ensure that status remains secure. Tonight's report is educational. We're not here to alarm you, but to inform you. We'll walk through 5 documented scenarios where citizenship or residency status can be affected, explain the legal framework behind these situations, and provide you with practical knowledge to stay informed and protected. This information comes from established immigration law, court precedents, and official government guidance. Whether you're a naturalized citizen, a green card holder, or someone supporting family members in either category, this report will give you clarity on rights, responsibilities, and rare circumstances that require awareness. Let's begin with the fundamentals. Before we discuss specific scenarios, it's essential to understand what citizenship and permanent residency actually are from a legal perspective. Both are formal legal statuses granted by the United States government, and both come with rights and responsibilities defined by federal law. U.S. citizenship can be acquired in 2 ways: by birth on U.S. soil or through naturalization. Citizens born in the United States receive citizenship automatically under the 14th Amendment to the Constitution. Naturalized citizens go through a formal process that includes meeting residency requirements, demonstrating good moral character, passing tests on English and civics, and taking an oath of allegiance. Once granted, citizenship provides the highest level of legal protection. Citizens have the right to vote, hold a U.S. passport, live permanently in the United States, and cannot be deported. The government cannot arbitrarily remove citizenship. However, citizenship is still a legal status governed by law, which means there are specific, narrow circumstances defined by statute and case law where it can be affected. Permanent residency, commonly known as having a green card, is a different category. Permanent residents have the right to live and work in the United States indefinitely, but this status is conditional. Green card holders must maintain certain requirements, such as not abandoning their residence, following U.S. laws, and fulfilling tax obligations. Unlike citizenship, permanent residency can be revoked through administrative processes if specific conditions are violated. The distinction matters because the legal protections differ. Citizens have constitutional protections that require extremely high standards before citizenship can be questioned. Permanent residents have statutory protections that, while substantial, allow for more administrative flexibility in enforcement. Understanding this framework helps put the scenarios we'll discuss into proper context. These are not arbitrary government actions, but legal processes with specific triggers, procedures, and protections built into the system. Before we outline specific scenarios, we want to be absolutely clear about something important. The overwhelming majority of U.S. citizens and green card holders will never face any of the situations we're about to describe. These scenarios are rare, involve specific circumstances, and typically require serious violations of law or legal obligations. If you became a citizen honestly, have lived your life following the law, fulfilled your civic responsibilities, and haven't engaged in fraud or serious criminal activity, your citizenship is secure. The Constitution and federal law provide strong protections that make citizenship loss extremely uncommon. Similarly, if you're a green card holder who maintains your residence in the United States, follows immigration requirements, pays taxes, and stays out of serious legal trouble, your permanent residency is stable. Millions of people hold green cards for decades without incident, eventually choosing to naturalize or maintaining permanent residency throughout their lives. The purpose of this report is not to create anxiety, but to provide awareness. Think of this like a news report about seatbelt laws or fire safety. Most people will never be in a serious car accident or house fire, but knowing the rules and precautions protects you if unusual circumstances arise. The scenarios we'll discuss are documented in law and have occurred in real cases, but they represent a tiny fraction of the citizen and permanent resident population. Our goal is to ensure you have accurate information, can recognize warning signs if they ever apply to you or someone you know, and understand the legal framework that governs these rare situations. Knowledge is protective. Understanding your rights and responsibilities as a citizen or permanent resident helps you make informed decisions and avoid unintentional violations. That's what tonight's report is about, empowering you with information information, not frightening you with worst-case scenarios. The most commonly documented scenario for citizenship loss involves cases where naturalization was obtained through deliberate fraud, willful misrepresentation, or concealment of material facts during the application process. When someone becomes a U.S. citizen, they must answer questions honestly and provide accurate information about their background, criminal history, and eligibility. If government authorities later discover that an individual lied about material facts to obtain citizenship, there is a legal process called denaturalization that can result in citizenship being revoked. Material facts are those that would have affected the decision to grant citizenship. Examples include concealing serious criminal convictions, lying about membership in prohibited organizations, or misrepresenting identity. This process is not administrative. The government must file a civil lawsuit in federal court, prove fraud by clear and convincing evidence, and the individual has full rights to legal defense and due process. Courts take these cases seriously because citizenship is a fundamental status. The government cannot simply revoke citizenship without judicial oversight. It's crucial to understand that mistakes or minor errors on naturalization applications do not constitute fraud. The legal standard requires intentional deception about significant matters. If someone misunderstood a question or made an honest error, that typically does not meet the threshold for denaturalization. U.S. law addresses situations where a citizen voluntarily serves in the armed forces of a foreign state engaged in hostilities against the United States. This scenario is grounded in the concept that taking up arms against your country represents a fundamental break in allegiance. However, even in these circumstances, the law requires voluntary action with intent to relinquish citizenship. A citizen cannot accidentally lose citizenship. They must take the action voluntarily and with specific intent to give up their U.S. citizenship. The government must prove both elements. Additionally, there are exceptions and complexities. Serving in the military of certain allied nations, serving in non-combat roles, or being compelled to serve under duress are all factors that courts consider. The law recognizes that these situations require careful examination of individual circumstances. This scenario is extremely rare and typically involves clear-cut cases where someone has made explicit choices to serve a hostile foreign power. It represents one of the most serious forms of expatriating action recognized in law. U.S. citizens have the right to renounce their citizenship voluntarily. This is a formal legal process that must be done before a U.S. consular or diplomatic officer in a foreign country or before an immigration official under specific circumstances. Renunciation must be voluntary and intentional. The government ensures that individuals understand the serious and permanent consequences of giving up citizenship. The process includes interviews, documentation, and often warnings about the irrevocability of the decision. Some people choose to renounce citizenship for tax reasons, to embrace citizenship in another country that doesn't allow dual nationality, or for personal reasons. Whatever the motivation, renunciation is a deliberate legal act with formal requirements. Importantly, simply saying you're giving up citizenship or acting in ways that might suggest you don't value citizenship does not automatically result in loss. The law requires specific formal procedures. Citizenship is too important to be lost through casual or informal means. U.S. law addresses situations where citizens accept policy-level positions in foreign governments. The legal framework recognizes that serving in high-level governmental roles for another country may be inconsistent with full allegiance to the United States. However, like other scenarios, this requires voluntary action with intent to relinquish citizenship. Not every government job abroad triggers this provision. The position must be at a policymaking level, and the individual must accept it voluntarily while intending to give up U.S. citizenship. Working for international organizations, serving in non-policy roles, or holding positions in countries with which the United States has special relationships may not fall under this provision. The law makes distinctions based on the nature of the position and the individual's intent. Again, this is a rare scenario that applies to very specific circumstances involving high-level foreign government service combined with demonstrated intent to abandon U.S. citizenship. The most serious scenario involves convictions for treason against the United States or for attempting to overthrow the government by force. These are among the gravest crimes defined in U.S. law and represent fundamental violations of the most basic obligation of citizenship, loyalty to the nation. Treason is specifically defined in the U.S. Constitution and requires either levying war against the United States or giving aid and comfort to its enemies. The Constitution sets high evidentiary standards for treason convictions, requiring testimony of 2 witnesses to the same overt act or confession in open court. Convictions for these offenses can result in citizenship loss, but only through proper judicial proceedings with full constitutional protections. These cases are exceptionally rare in modern American history because the legal standards are so high and the charges so serious. It's important to note that political dissent, criticism of government, or even civil disobedience do not constitute treason or attempts to overthrow the government. The First Amendment protects wide-ranging political speech and activity. The crimes that could trigger citizenship loss in this scenario require actual violent action against the government or aid to enemy nations during wartime. While U.S. citizens face very limited circumstances where citizenship can be affected, green card holders have a different legal status with additional considerations. Permanent residency is a privilege that comes with specific ongoing requirements. The most common way green card holders lose status is through abandonment of residency. Permanent residents must maintain their actual residence in the United States. Extended absences from the country, establishing a primary residence elsewhere, or actions that demonstrate an intent to abandon U.S. residents can result in a determination that permanent residency has been abandoned. There's no bright-line rule for how long is too long to be outside the United States, but absences exceeding 6 months trigger scrutiny, and absences over 1 year create a presumption of abandonment unless special documentation is obtained beforehand. Green card holders who need to spend extended time abroad should understand re-entry permit procedures. Criminal convictions represent another significant risk. Permanent residents convicted of certain crimes, particularly aggravated felonies or crimes involving moral turpitude, can face removal proceedings. Unlike citizens who cannot be deported for criminal conduct, permanent residents can lose their status through the immigration consequences of criminal convictions. Fraud in obtaining the green card itself can also lead to revocation, similar to the denaturalization process for citizens, but through immigration proceedings rather than federal court lawsuits. Green card holders should also understand that they must file U.S. tax returns on worldwide income, carry their green card at all times, notify immigration authorities of address changes, and avoid claiming to be non-immigrants or non-residents for purposes of avoiding legal obligations. The good news is that these requirements are straightforward, and millions of permanent residents comply with them without difficulty throughout their lives in the United States. The key is awareness and intentional compliance with the conditions of permanent residency. Protecting your citizenship or permanent residency status begins with understanding your rights and responsibilities. For both citizens and green card holders, staying informed about immigration law and policy helps you make good decisions. First, maintain accurate records. Keep copies of your naturalization certificate, green card, passport, and any immigration-related documents in a safe place. If you're a permanent resident, document your time in the United States and any extended trips abroad with entry and exit records. Second, be truthful in all dealings with government authorities. Whether applying for benefits, renewing documents, or answering questions from officials, honesty is essential. Material misrepresentations can have serious consequences, while honest mistakes are generally not penalized. Third, if you're a permanent resident considering extended travel, consult with qualified immigration resources before leaving. Understanding re-entry permits, the impact of long absences, and documentation requirements can prevent problems at the border. Fourth, be aware of the immigration consequences of criminal conduct. For permanent residents especially, even relatively minor criminal convictions can trigger immigration proceedings. Understanding these consequences before accepting plea agreements is crucial. Fifth, keep your contact information updated with relevant government agencies. Permanent residents must file address change notifications. Citizens should ensure passport information is current, especially if traveling internationally. Finally, if you ever receive any official communication questioning your status, whether citizenship or permanent residency, take it seriously and consider consulting with qualified legal resources. These situations are rare, but when they occur, they require proper attention and response. General awareness and responsible compliance with legal obligations provide strong protection for the vast majority of citizens and permanent residents. Let's address some common misconceptions about citizenship and permanent residency loss. Myth: the government can take away citizenship for political beliefs or speech. Fact: the First Amendment protects political speech and beliefs. Citizenship cannot be revoked for holding or expressing political views, even controversial ones. Myth: traveling to certain countries automatically endangers citizenship or green card status. Fact: travel itself doesn't cause status loss. However, permanent residents must be careful about extended absences, and all travelers should be aware of specific legal restrictions on travel to sanctioned nations. Myth: dual citizenship puts your U.S. citizenship at risk. Fact: the United States recognizes dual citizenship. Holding citizenship in another country does not automatically threaten U.S. citizenship, though certain actions in connection with foreign citizenship might. Myth: Minor errors on immigration forms will lead to denaturalization. Fact: denaturalization requires proof of willful misrepresentation of material facts. Honest mistakes or minor errors don't meet this legal standard. Myth: green card holders have the same protections as citizens. Fact: while permanent residents have substantial rights, citizenship provides additional protections, particularly regarding deportation and the conditions under which status can be affected. Myth: once you're a citizen, you can do anything without consequences. Fact: while citizenship is highly secure, it still comes with legal obligations and responsibilities. The law defines specific serious violations that can affect citizenship. Understanding these distinctions helps separate fact from fear and enables informed decision-making. As we conclude tonight's report, we want to leave you with perspective and reassurance. The scenarios we've discussed tonight are documented in law, but they represent rare circumstances that affect a tiny fraction of the millions of U.S. citizens and permanent residents who live, work, and raise families in this country every day. U.S. citizenship is one of the most legally protected statuses in the world. The Constitution, federal statutes, and court precedents create strong safeguards that prevent arbitrary or unjust loss of citizenship. For naturalized citizens who obtain their status honestly and have lived as law-abiding residents, citizenship is secure and permanent. Permanent residency, while subject to more conditions, provides stable legal status for millions of people who comply with straightforward requirements about maintaining residence, following the law, and meeting basic obligations. Green card holders who understand these conditions and act accordingly have every reason to feel confident in their status. The purpose of tonight's report has been education, not alarm. We believe that informed communities are stronger communities. When people understand their rights, responsibilities, and the legal framework governing their status, they can make better decisions and protect themselves and their families. If you found this information valuable, share it with family members, friends, or community members who might benefit from understanding these issues. Knowledge shared is protection extended to others. For those who have questions about their specific situations, remember that general news reports like this one provide information but cannot substitute for qualified legal guidance on individual circumstances. When personal questions arise, appropriate professional resources can provide specific advice. Thank you for watching tonight's special report. We hope this information has given you clarity, understanding, and confidence about citizenship and permanent residency in the United States. Stay informed, stay responsible, and know that for the vast majority of Americans and permanent residents, your status is secure.